Welcome to my channel, my friends, and let's explore! Здравейте, какво става? It is beautiful out here. 20 degrees. Yeah, well, the car's not leaving, so I guess I'll just go talk to you inside because I know the audio captures a lot of environment noise. So, interestingly, well, I've been quite well lately, first of all, enjoying my time, doing some self-development, so the lockdown, the state of emergency is quite well on me, staying healthy, staying in shape, cooking a lot, so I guess all is pretty cool. I had an interesting reflection. My brother, who lives in the Netherlands, he has a girlfriend who's from Finland, and they've announced, well, quite a long time ago already, but they've announced that about next year they are going to move to Finland together to, well, start a life there, raise a family, I guess. So they'll have a wedding next year, and simultaneously that will be the goodbye party, after which they are going to go to Finland. Well, I was obviously quite surprised that they wanted to do that. I went to Finland exactly last year to see the family of my brother's girlfriend. I must say it's an awesome country. But still, I wasn't quite sure what they would be doing there. And my brother's argument is just that there's a lot more space, you can find work there. And I guess also his girlfriend really wants to go back to her country, and he just feels like taking on this adventure, which I completely understand. And it was interesting because obviously my parents, they support him, but they, it's always a bit sad to have both children in completely other locations, because it's quite random that you have a kid in Bulgaria and one in Finland. First of all, because you don't have them close by, you won't have these grandchildren close by, which is quite difficult. On the other hand, because it's not near, it's pretty far, we don't really have a good connection from Bulgaria to Finland. It makes it a bit complicated to visit both of us. It would require separate trips, or at least some longer connecting flights for me to get to Finland. So logistically it is a bit challenging, but more interestingly is the aspect that Bulgaria and Finland are so different from each other. And when I did some online searching, I found that Finland is often claimed to be one of the happiest countries in the world, and Bulgaria is one of the unhappiest ones. At least in the EU. I want to keep it on an EU perspective. Bulgaria is the unhappiest one, and Finland is in the top of the happiest countries, together with Denmark, the Netherlands, and Finland tops the list in almost every regard in the EU, and Bulgaria is at the lower end, or the bottom end, of every list the EU has. But very interestingly, our lives, the one that I have and the one that my brother would have, they're not all too different. Because at the end of the day, it is what you make of it yourself. My brother is going to build a house there, to have his family, something that I'm not planning to do in Bulgaria because, well, I basically don't need the space because I'm a single guy. It's just a different kind of life. But he would, just like me, be living in a country with nature, with lots of space, with just one big main city and one economic center. Yeah, there are some other cities, but it's quite urbanized, just like Bulgaria is. And there's a lot of forest, there's just you have the space to build a house, you have the serenity, just like you have here. In that regard, he longs for the same that I longed for, which is to have your space and to be able to get out there, find a place where you can get to rest a bit, just feel like you're, you know, surrounded by what life's all about, or the very nature that we come from. Doing long hikes, doing barbecues, doing fishing on the lakes, which obviously Finland is ideal for. And when I was there last year, it was interesting to me that I really tried to see if people were very happy. But what I found, we visited during winter, is that mostly they seem very content. And they seemed very, very peaceful, very much at peace with what they have. They are some of the most mellow and relaxed people that I've come across. Incredibly hospitable, warm and welcoming. A misconception about Finnish people is that they are very cold or unapproachable, which I found not true. Yes, admittedly, they will not be the first people to start a chat with you on a train, not at all. But get a bit closer to them and they are very warm. And that's a trait that is shared by Bulgarians, I believe, because although Bulgarians can be very chatty, on the opposite end of Bulgaria, still you have to do some effort to approach them. And get into their inner circles, and then they will be your eternal friend, which is the same as in Finland. So Bulgaria is a lot warmer in terms of culture, more chatty, but still the first step has to come from you as a foreigner, because still Bulgarians tend to stick to their own circles at first. It has some similarities in that regard. What I found a big difference is that, you know, the Finnish are very content. It's because they have the social security, they come from a very stable society with free education and just a very healthy functioning of the state. Bulgaria has been a transitioning state to the capitalist market. It hasn't been all that easy, and still nowadays the press freedom is not good at all. Job perspectives in the country itself are terrible. You just have the city and that's about it. Then even within the city it's crowded, infrastructure is not ideal. There's inflation, or for example electricity prices. Wages are not increasing on the exact same level, because for groceries we often pay Western European prices, although services may be cheaper, and it agitates people. The whole system agitates people because the system is different. So what you have in Sofia, and I guess the country in general, is people are they are, I wouldn't say exactly nervous, but a little bit tense about the situation. Because if you don't have a clear path on how your future is going to look, you have a very small pension, healthcare is not all that perfect, especially in the country, has a lot to improve. We have years, light years back to, for example, the standard of Finland. And in that regard, people are always aware of that there are a few steps away from the edge in Bulgaria, which is something that in Finland people don't have to think about. On the one hand, that means that people are walking on their toes a bit. They are more a bit direct. You can work with them quickly because, hey, there's no time for nonsense here. We all have bread to bring to the table. So we are a bit sharp. That's what I like about Bulgarian society. People are inventive. Struggle is the place where inventions come from. When you have a hard time, you become inventive. It's within the human race. And in Finland, you can basically rely on the system. It will always be there for you from the day you're born until the day you die. In Bulgaria, yeah, there is a system, and I guess there have been a lot of improvements, but the societal standard is different and quite the opposite. Regardless, the people share some traits. It's that they have the winter and the summer. It's quite a similar climate, which means that people are stuck inside in winter because it gets quite cold. Meaning they spend a lot of time with their family. Especially in the country, they have the summer houses. Family bonds are very tight, which is the same in Bulgaria. In summer, people do the activities together, from hunting to fishing. A lot of similarities. People have respect for the forest, just like in Bulgaria. And the thing is that the outdoor life lives very much in both societies. So, in general terms, I can very much understand why you would move to Finland. Although Bulgaria has another dimension with it, which is the southern aspect still, which is, to me at least, even if I'd have the choice, I would stay in Bulgaria. Because there is a very, very slight flavor of the Mediterranean lifestyle. Or perhaps not very slight. I mean, we're not in the Mediterranean, but we do have the laid-back cafe culture, the sitting around doing nothing, enjoying the sun. I mean, what I appreciate about Bulgarians is that they can learn to let go. They know how to let go. So the nerves of the unstable situation in the country, perhaps, the financial security is not all that high. People can learn to switch it off and enjoy themselves, having a barbecue, going to the park. You rarely see a city with so many people hanging out as Sofia, Bulgaria, on a summer evening. It is absolutely marvelous. And people do not wallow away in the stress. It in fact stimulates them to switch it off and to go to the opposite end of the spectrum and try to enjoy it as much as they can. But then why is Bulgaria still named one of the unhappiest countries, or at least the unhappiest country in the EU? I guess again the societal standards. You always have in the back of your mind that you're accountable for yourself here. You have to rely on yourself. Another thing is that Bulgaria is a country of immigrants. So although there are strong family bonds, you always have a sister or an uncle or a grandma or your parents who either have lived, live, or are going to live in another country. And that has some influence on it as well. My brother and I, we come here out of choice, but Bulgarians, they often migrate for economic reasons, which has the underlying connotation and obviously underlying truth that you can make more money in another country, giving the conclusion that other countries are better. In a lot of regards, it's true. Other countries are better than Bulgaria in some aspects, but the streets in the UK are not paved with gold either, and that's what people do find out. And in Bulgaria, with the very high rate of urbanization, once people come back and find a good job in Sofia, they find that they have the same or in fact a better standard of living than in, for example, the UK, where rents are skyrocketing and your salary is not all that much as it seems, relatively speaking, because we do have Bulgarians coming back here. Why still the unhappiest country? I guess it's who you ask, and I guess a lot of it is perception. We have some dirt poor people and pensioners in Bulgaria eating out of trash cans. Absolutely true. Absolutely. And of course they have every right to be unhappy. but Bulgaria is a heavily unequal country. You have me living in this apartment, and a lot of middle class or higher income class people with me having a perfect lifestyle, which rivals on Western Europe. But when I walk into the grass here, I found it out last week. There's a guy living in a hut made of boxes. So the contrasts are huge in Bulgaria. And that makes a lot of people unhappy because when you see people doing better than you, uh, it makes you feel disadvantaged. And especially when you see people doing better than you who in fact don't deserve it, who come there through corruption or through connections. And this whole ordeal makes people feel even more on the edge because it makes them feel powerless. And I guess that's a little bit of what goes in the, or not even such a little bit, that goes into the unhappiness of the Bulgarian society. There's obviously other things such as pollution. When you have this urbanization, people have to live in Sofia, which has dirty air. It's a little bit cramped up. It's noisy. It's just, striving to become better, but it has a long way to go. Although it has covered a long way already. It makes people feel on the edge. The traffic jams, the dirty air, the fact that some companies, they don't pay on time, the fact that you can have a boss who gets there through only connections, which is, it makes you feel unequal. And people, for example, they get loans to buy an apartment, but the salaries are not all that high, but in any other way they would still have to live with their parents. Just everything, it seems like everything is a 1% addition to the living on the edge. And although it seems that Bulgaria has a lot of things in order, which it does, still there is a societal thing that makes people just live a lower quality of life still than in the West. Although it is improving, although my and many other people's standards are quite high, I just have to say that my income is much higher than the income of many people here. And it all comes down to the way or how stable you are. If you're unstable, everything falls apart. Even the feeling of being unstable, it gets you down into the drains. And people here, they are always quite close to that. Especially if you live with loans, if your parents, they have a small pension, they cannot afford their medicine, everything makes you feel like you are on the brink of a collapse. Although that is it sounds very negative, there's always the underlying thought of it. The underlying thought that we can be people who are close to the edge, or we all know people who have walked the edge or fallen over it. Right? And I must say that's some factors that makes Bulgaria an unhappy place. And that doesn't mean that people are necessarily unfriendly. Not at all. People try their best to be extremely welcoming. But it is the thoughts that creep up to people sometimes when they want stability, start a family, just like anywhere else. These people are the same as in Finland, as anywhere else. But there's a nagging sense of instability. Do Bulgarians have it the worst in the world? No, not at all. It is still improving. But Bulgarians have an outlook on the world, onto Europe. And when they know that other countries are doing better, and Bulgaria should have been in a better place because they've had a long time to improve things, and still there are some things that they're not happy with at all, it gives you this dissatisfaction. And I completely understand that. Is it fair and is it possible to compare Finland and Bulgaria? No, because I'm on very weak ice with all sorts of assumptions and generalizations I'm making. But I feel that Finland has this whole stability, and you have a number of things that you can fall back on when things go wrong. The edge is never in your life. You don't have to think about it. Although Finland has its issues, I mean, it's quite dark in winter. There's higher alcoholism and higher suicide rates, which, hey, is another thing, a dark aspect that Finland has. And for example, Lithuania and Latvia have, because, hey, they're in the northern hemisphere and people have their own issues. But still, at least the Finnish society is functioning very well. And I'd have to do more research about how the economy works there, because it's still quite a mystery to me. And who affords all of these social care programs, because it is quite fascinating to me. It's still a country with relatively small number of inhabitants. So would I choose Finland? No, because I just feel myself that Bulgaria is more adventure. It's a bit more warm to strangers. It's easier to integrate. Because people still rely on each other relatively much, it is easier to start up a conversation because, hey, you're not all so apart from each other. We're in this all together. And although it is becoming more wealthy, we still have a sense of community, slightly, especially in the city, it's quite slight, that we are here for each other, we are all stuck in this. We're trying to gain a better way of life, and that also gives a spark of optimism that I'm definitely sensing in Bulgaria, especially with the younger population. Things are getting better, and the younger people, they are as optimistic as you would see them in, for example, Amsterdam or anywhere else. There is things going on, there's projects, there's people coming back, and things are quite wonderful. But it all depends on the perspective. And if you are above the edge, if you don't have it inside, and you have a decent income and stability and relative flexibility, you can live fantastically in Bulgaria, as a Bulgarian or as a foreigner. But you'd have to see it for yourself. And you have to be flexible in your thinking. You have to think on your feet in Bulgaria. And it's exactly this dynamic that makes me feel more involved. I feel like I'm in a place where things are happening and where we cannot afford to sit back and sit on our laurels to see that and to just assume that things will always be alright. I feel that the Bulgarians are quite proactive, especially the young generation, in making this a better place. And I just feel wonderful that I'm a part of that I feel the things changing, I see the things changing. That makes me decide that Bulgaria for me is a more dynamic place to be currently. A lot of things happening. Whereas, my apologies if I'd say so, Finland is still a bit of a quiet backwater. Although I guess a lot of aspects are better. I feel more alive in the south in general. By no means am I saying that Finland is a bad choice. I mean, it's pretty cool what my brother is going to do. He will obviously have a fabulous quality of life. It's amazing. The family is amazing of my brother's girlfriend. It is just wonderful. So I do encourage him, and I do encourage anybody else to get out there, to explore. And these reflections, you can only make them after you've been to places, and arguably only when you've lived in places. But reflections are always okay. They are not conclusions. I'm not saying that one place is better or worse, or it all depends. It is all very subjective on, well, many factors. I think I've shared enough of my reflections. I hope it's quite interesting to you. Definitely our family situation will be very interesting with one person in Bulgaria, one in Finland, and two parents in the Netherlands. I think that it's a very rare situation to have it like this. To me, it's interesting, and I hope to visit Finland many more times when my brother does finally go there, because I did find it an awesome place. And my Finland footage from last year, March 2019, is on my YouTube, so have a look at the videos if you want. And yeah, leave any comments or thoughts you have. I appreciate it. Take care, have a wonderful sunny day. Take care of yourself in the lockdown, and all will be fine. Relax and take a breath. Bye bye.